Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of the anime movie Maquia When the Promised Flower Blooms. And I thought this movie was okay. Granted, none of the issues really go into like the animation. I think that the animation was very well done and really brought you into this fantasy world that you're introduced to. I would really like them to dive more into what's going on with the world and all that kind of world building. But I know this really wasn't supposed to be that kind of movie. It's more focused on the central character of Maquia and everything that she kind of does throughout the film. So we're introduced to Maquia and her group, the Clan of the Separated, the Eorf, as they are pretty much people that weave tapestries and they live long, long lives. They're like age vastly slower than humans, and of course, they have to keep themselves separated because humans get kind of freaked out. It's like, hey, you're like a kid, and I had like 3 generations die, and you still look like a kid. Not that I'd give a fuck. I'd be like, do you, man? But we're introduced. We see Maquia dealing with her friends Krim and Lelia, and of course, Lelia is kind of like the wild child doing all the different kinds of shit. And it's like, okay, their parents get back, but we see that Maquia doesn't have any parents. She's orphaned. And Lady Racine, the village elder's like, don't cry, be okay. Just, if you ever go outside, don't fall in love with that outsider. Okay. Because she, like, was looking at one of the tapestries she was doing for the Hiball thing, and there was, like, a tear. It's like, alright, okay. But evidently at night she's like doing her Hibble kind of thing, but then she had seen like her friends moving around. We see Krim and Alelia doing their kind of stuff. But Maquia sees like these flying things like, what the fuck's going on? And this dude comes up like, hey, I'm supposed to take all your women. Okay. This is kind of crazy. And then one of their dragon things goes, which is a Renato. And it evidently has this red eye disease. It goes berserk. Maquia had pretty much been shut up inside of like the main kind of place that's got the Hibbles. Fucking thing crashes through. Blah blah blah. Freaks up. Pretty much gets her caught up in like the Hibbles and shit and flies off as it's like pretty much burning itself out. Dies over forest and she kind of like falls down and like, what the fuck's going on? And she sees like flames and everything coming from her village. It's like, that's not good. And this was from, let's see, a group of soldiers from the Nazarte Empire. And they're like, we need this. Okay. And we see that Maquia goes and she happens upon a kind of encampment that had been raided by bandits. And she sees this one dude being like, yeah, I'm just doing my thing. The thing's going to be pretty much a loose thread. Pretty much talking in kind of terms like the Eorf. It's like, okay, he's probably one of them. We find out later on he's like a half Eorf or whatnot, even though we don't even know what that kind of means. Because we do get other kind of half Eorf introduced, but it doesn't really go that in depth into it. But she finds this baby, and she decides to take care of it, prying it from its dead mother, and calling it, going around. Chances upon this farm, the mother with the 2 kids, one of them named Lang. He becomes kind of important later. Well, I say important, but with the diffusion of all the different kind of characters loosely. But she goes there, teaching all this kind of stuff. It's kind of nice to see her trying to be a mother and all that. She's going to be giving like Hibble and kind of stuff to this one dude. He's like, yeah, I got some of this shit. Why the fuck would I fuck with that shit? And we see that Ariel loves his mother and stuff like that. This one girl, Dita's like, it's fucking weird to like your mom. He's like, well, fuck you too. I hate you. Granted, I'm putting the fuck yous in there, but that's the kind of gist. And this really upsets her because she evidently likes his ass. That even becomes important later on because, of course. But they're doing their thing. And just growing up, having to bury the dog, of course, learning the importance of death and everything. But of course, Maquia isn't going to die like that, and she's freaking out because all the people that she loves is going to die before her. She doesn't even know if she's going to die to ever see him again. That part is never really explored. Because granted, we have seen that Eorf can be killed, but we've never seen one die to old age. So, is there another world? All that kind of stuff. There's also this thing of like legends, and it's brought up with like the Eorf and the Renato and all that kind of shit. And it's like, okay. And we find out that she's, of course, dealing with all this stuff, trying to raise her kid and everything. But she goes in the shop one day, and the one dude's like, "Hey, have you kind of seen this?" And she's able to see that it's about Lelia, and that she's going to be married to Prince Hazel of the Mazarte Empire, because they've only got a couple Renato left because they keep dying to Red Eye, so they're pretty much like, "Hey, let's try to use all this ancient shit and use might equals right kind of shit to make sure that we're all in top dog." Of course, Maquia's got to go figure this out. Lang's mom's like, "Hey, you could just leave Ariel here." He's like, "No, I'll do this." And Maquia and Ariel decide to go there. Of course, this introduces friction and shit like that. As the kid's like, I'm good as long as I'm with you, Mom. But of course, once they're like doing this shit, it's a lot different than what he's used to. It's like, alright. But she's able to kind of hook up with Krim and the rest of the group. And they're like, yeah, we're gonna jailbreak our homie and get this shit done. Of course, they figure out, plot everything out. They freak out one of the things for Hazel. And of course, Mako was able to get Lelia to come with her. She's like, no, I can't go. I'm Breggers. And it's like, holy fucking shit. She's like, no, I can fly, because she's pretty much thinking that, like, hey, why the fuck are the Renato here? They can fly anytime. And, of course, it's pretty much on the nose, because we get 3 years later and she's like, I'm just like the Renato. I'm trapped here and shit. And I'm like, yeah. But Mako escapes the Izor dude who had captured them. He's like, go after her! And she's like, don't do it, I'll fucking take this kid out. It's like, Jesus. She's like threatening to pretty much like abort the kid, and it's like, oh god, that's ooh. But again, nothing really kind of comes of that. So Prim's like, we're gonna keep working to try and get her ass out. You go fuck off. So she's like, alright. Mako and Ariel then decide to be like, let's kind of go to a new place. They essentially set up in a new place where she's like a barmaid kind of person, and Ariel works in the mines. He, of course, is going through his terrible teen years. His friends think that, like, that's his sister and all that, and, like, with her or whatnot. And he's, of course, fed up with her being his mom, because he knows that she's not his biological mother. And he says nasty things. There's like, well, I don't want to be your son anymore kind of shit. And, of course, that breaks her heart and everything. She keeps one of the hibbles that he made, calling her mom and all that, and it's like, Jesus. Because he got, for some reason, we have a scene where he gets pretty much drunk with the rest of the guys. I mean, granted, it's pretty much to kind of like get him to bring his emotions to the forefront, but it's just like, okay, alright. And that's kind of, Lang had appeared at this point. He had gotten off the farm, so did his brother, because nothing was going on rurally. He's working pretty much as a guard in the Mazarte Empire, and Ariel asks him to help him become a castle soldier because he wants to be strong enough to protect his mom. And granted, he doesn't really say this to her up front. She's able to overhear, and that's why he wants to go off. Now granted, he also wants to go out to live his own kind of life. And she, of course, sees him off, and then she gets captured randomly. It's like, what the fuck is going on here? So we then see him like age more, as he's pretty much, I would say, late teens, early 20s kind of ish. It's like, what the fuck's going on? This has gotten to the point where we've got the Princess Medmal. The attempt to fuse the two bloodlines has failed, and Lelia is pretty much locked up and screaming like they haven't let her see her kid, her child. That's all she wants. She's pissed off. Hazel's pretty much fucking whoever he wants and all that kind of shit. And it's just like, okay, your objective to try and like save the Empire has fucking failed horrendously. But never mind that. You could have like done other kind of stuff and gotten other kind of technology and not been a complete another douche nozzle of an empire. But hey, you just did the same kind of cycle of violence kind of shit. Well, we find out that Maquia had been captured by this other kind of place, Bay Area, I think, yeah, and Krim was a part of that, and he had petitioned the rest of the nations to, like, fuck their shit up because of the shit that the Mazarte Empire had done. Like, yeah, we don't help you. We see that he's like, yeah, we're gonna fucking get this back. Cuts her hair because only a New York that's had a child can have their hair grow to a certain length. It's just like, Jesus, dude. And Krim's turn of obsession with Lelia is really kind of weird because we also see a callback of how Krim had tried to rescue Lelia before, but most of his friends, most of the people involved, were murdered. She thought he was killed, and of course, she pretty much just had all of her hopes dashed, so she just pretty much tried to keep everything up with her daughter, which of course she couldn't see and all that. It's like, okay. See what I mean? With there's a lot of different kind of things going on. It's like, okay, cool. But they kind of set their things up, and then it gets to the kind of final portion where all these different nations have allied and attack the Mazarte Empire's capital for reasons. I mean, I understand attempting to get Lelia back, but there does not seem to be any overture of diplomacy, no messengers or anything, nothing, just a sudden attack, and the Mazarte Empire gets its ass, like, fucking reamed. We, of course, see Ariel trying to deal with everything. His wife, Dita, is pregnant, which is the same chick before. And he has to leave her. It's like, hey, you'll be okay. Immediately goes into pregnancy. Oh, Jesus Christ. Does anybody know about pacing? Like, I understand there's certain things that plot shit needs to happen, but I mean, it's almost... You have to work on it a little bit. So that way it's not immediately like, oh, don't worry, everything will be alright. And then immediately the thing that they said everything was going to be alright about fucking happens. It's like, jeez. So they're fighting and everything. They've pretty much got one Renato left. The red-eye thing's probably of like, they're not supposed to be caged up and shit like that. And just don't fucking be themselves. It's a metaphor, but I mean, it's like overhanded, like overhand, every fucking thing. Just be like, yeah, kind of get it. Not saying that you can't have that kind of theme, but do a little bit something with it other than just like essentially stating it. It's like, all right, and then just leave it there. It's like, okay, why? Because these things will die out. Okay, cool. Maybe a little bit something more of that, but alright. I mean, they kind of do be like, yeah, those legends should be left off to do themselves. The Izor kind of do, but we get some nice kind of action scenes and stuff like that, but this movie isn't really about that. Interestingly enough, they could have done stuff about like war and violence and all that kind of stuff mixed in with like the motherhood and all that kind of aspect. They're there, but they're not really woven together like they should be. I know it helps out because it deals with a lot of weaving and looms and shit like that, but with a plot you need to weave these things together. And it just doesn't really have it. It's, you see all these things and they try to connect them, but it doesn't execute it perfectly. And it, in my opinion, it just does it adequately enough for me to not be completely just over it. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, cool. So Maquia and Krim, pretty much for some odd fucking reason, are riding to the castle as well. Because, I don't know, you would fucking let all the forces that are going to fucking take out the rest of the people guarding who you're going after to do that. That doesn't make any goddamn sense. There's a lot of fucking shit that could have been fucking undone if Maquia and some other people had been sent as essential emissaries to get unconditional surrender or the surrender of Lelia from the Empire. And that would have saved Ariel potentially being in harm's way and for him being there for the birth of his daughter. Fuck. Why the hell were they riding there then? That makes no sense. Sorry, it's... Once you start going through and explaining kind of what's going on with the story, you sometimes pop up and be like, they shouldn't have been there. also mainly because if you are going after, well, the Empire, granted, for like two reasons, pretty much to be like, fuck that people, fuck that, fuck them, and then also to kind of help these people, why would you be like, hey, you people, why don't you fucking go in there yourselves? I'm like, no. But they get separated. Makoa finds Ariel and kind of buggers out and then helps deliver her grandkid. Krim's like, hey, how about I pretty much kill ourselves so that way we're separated again. Granted, he doesn't overly state it, but like his actions are fucking weird ass possessed and obsessed. And she's like, hey, my daughter's the only thing that's kept me alive. I want to go see my daughter. And he's pretty much trying to kill him, but of course, Izor shoots his ass. He dies next to one of the Renato in that thing and bleeds out into the water. His story kind of almost meant no fucking thing, and he could have either died or disappeared at any point, and nothing would have been fucking changed. Lelia's shit wouldn't have. And of course, we see that Hazel and his father are escaping in the tunnels. Mad Mel's left and is like, hey, I'm trying to wonder what's going on here. And of course, the Empire is defeated. Izor's taken out. Makoa has delivered a kid. She's all cute. It's like, oh yeah. Pretty much that Ariel helped take care of her. That's pretty much the reason why. That's one of the reasons why she said that she would do it. And, took him as a baby and everything and made sure that he would grow up alright. And, of course, Dita's now learning all the great stuff that Mako has done. Mako was able to go and find Ariel. He's alive. He's just injured. And she's like, alright, I'll be leaving. Even though, she's like, you taught me to be kind and strong and brave and pretty much just repairing their relationship and everything. But she's like, I gotta go. And he's like, Mom, please don't go and all that. Of course, she goes, gets that last Renato, frees its ass, goes up. We see that Lelia has a like little portion with Medmel, being like, hey, kind of forget my ass, and then jumps off the tower and is like, what the fuck? Lands on the Renato, and they just leave. Mako was like, I'm gonna try and remember everything. Lelia's like, just forget me and forget kind of everything. And Manuel's like, wow, my mom's kind of beautiful and shit like that. I'm like, yeah, you kind of should have known your mom, even though most of your like family was a bunch of dick shits and fucked you over by not letting you know your mom. She's like, she's gonna have a different kind of life because the Empire's fallen and all that. We see that Ariel gets back home and sees his new daughter and all that kind of stuff. Cute, and Nita of course apologizes because of everything that she said back then. She's like, yeah, it's okay. She raised me to be someone who knew how to love someone, and that's how we're going to do with this kid and spread that kind of love. It's a good kind of message. It's just like, okay, all right, I don't mind the themes and the messaging that like pops up in this movie. It just seems really kind of weird how it's delivered and executed. It's like, okay, but we then get to the we had seen also previously that one Eorf was like, yeah, I'm kind of half Eorf, just watch your ass, they said to Makoa. And then we see him also at the end as we jump forward and we see that Makoa comes to visit Ariel on his deathbed and visits pretty much her great-grandchild, Lily. She's all cute and everything, kind of like Ariel at that age. And she's like, yeah, Mom's, then we see the girl that she delivered saying like, yeah, Mom died recently, when you've kind of come just in time, as she's able to come to Ariel and he says, Mom, welcome home, as he then passes away. It was really nice. And then we had seen throughout the movie that moms don't cry, and that Mako was like, I can't keep this promise as she's crying that the son that she's raised has died. I'm like, yeah? It's really kind of weird. I understand showing strength during times for like parents and everything. But I don't think it's wrong to cry for certain reasons, like you're happy that you found your kid when he decided to pretty much run away after you called him pretty much all these kind of problems. Or to cry over the loss of a loved one. It's really kind of weird. I'm like, okay. I think, alright, weird kind of messaging there. It's like, never cry? What? That's not healthy? Like, you find the balance. Cry it out. Just don't let your emotions completely and utterly rule you. Don't Darth Vader some shit, man. Be cool. Don't Achilles that motherfucker. Yes, I'm mixing all of them. But she then goes and finds the weird Eorf, half Eorf dude, like, hey, let's go meet the next person that you're gonna have to pretty much leave or whatnot. Say hello to that person. It's like, yeah, when you're that long lived, people will come and go, but it shouldn't stop you from talking to them and loving them and sharing in their sadness and pain. You gotta keep living. And then we see at the end that there's a new kind of village with like the Renato and all that and all these different kind of stuff with the Eorf, and I'm like, that's really cool. So overall, I like the messaging and everything, but it just got bogged down with all this stuff that I don't think was as tied to the central kind of premises and themes as it needed to be, or it was not given the time and development it needed to make itself abundantly apparent. Like Krim and Lelia, I kind of would have run on that kind of stuff, kind of cut and just kind of focus on Maquia dealing with being a mother. I think it would have been better if it was pared down to just focusing on that. Not that I'm not interested in these characters, because they have the basis of interesting kind of kernels. Cram definitely, with his obsession with Lelia and everything and turning into an crazy ass dude. But it's really kind of accelerated to a point where it's like, okay, this is fucking weird, and he's kind of ready to like kill themselves together. But see, the thing is, years and years have passed between these different kind of points, and even though they have passed, we don't experience that passage with those characters. We don't get those signposts of like, oh, okay, he loved this girl. We get that in the beginning, and then he's doing everything he can to save her, but the way he thinks to save her is to, and the only way for them to ever stay together is to kill themselves. How did we get to that point? You're giving me 2 + 2 equaling 5 at this point. Granted, it's kind of close. I can almost see it, but you kind of need the 1 in there to get me to that point. Ariel, I liked, but again, he kind of dealt with the same kind of problem of certain accelerations. And I think that would have been better if it had just been pared down to Maquia and Ariel. I don't think this is the worst thing ever. It's just there is enough character development here that there really needs to go a little bit further in what needed to happen to kind of give us a little bit more nuance and flavor of what's going on, so that way it doesn't seem like it's kind of rushing along. Even though this is a weird one because it seems like it rushes in those parts but still doesn't rush in certain other areas. It's the length that's fucking weird. Action scenes, they're not bad. It's just, as long as they add to what's going on, I don't have a problem with it. My issue is I was more focused on Maquia and Ariel and their whole kind of thing, and the action scenes are fine, but I'm almost like, this doesn't really add much to what's going on. I mean, granted, you are introducing stakes and tension of like, will Ariel survive? All that kind of shit. But you're like, okay? Just a random ass like coalition of countries going fuck this place right up. Alright. And then also the weird kind of plot things of like the like Maquia and Krim going to the palace. Why the fuck would that happen? There's a lot of different ways where the plot demanded that certain things happen, and it's like that's where it starts taking you out of your suspension of disbelief. See, a world, when it does suspension of disbelief, the world tells you all of these different kind of rules. It should. So that way, even if something kind of weird happens, as long as it follows the rules of the world and what's going on, you're okay. You still have your suspension of disbelief. You're like, alright, this follows the rules, this follows what's going on, this follows the lore or whatnot. We're okay. Once you start saying that stuff doesn't kind of matter, and the plot demands that certain things happen and characters do these things, then you start eroding a suspension of disbelief to where you're like, I just literally got kind of even pulled out more once I got to that end part, and I took that and I'm like, no, that completely and utterly fucks whatever's going on here. Yeah. So, this is kind of a hit or miss. I think that some people would enjoy it, enjoy the kind of connection that Maquia and Ariel have and their eventual end goal, but It's weird. I would put a lot of other different movies and anime shows on before this one, and I would I would say definitely like a rent or streaming service, and do it when you absolutely have nothing else. You need like a palate cleanser, you need something to watch on a long trip or whatnot. Kind of like a rent kind of mentality or whatnot. Buying, I'm like, it depends upon if you're really into it. If this just grabs you, yeah, cool. But definitely look into it and find some other kind of place to kind of see it or rent it or whatnot. That's how I would recommend with this one. It's not as clear cut as watch it or don't watch it. It does some things right. It does a lot of other things wrong, but it doesn't completely destroy the thing, if that makes sense. So those are my opinions on the anime. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.